Cherish, you're on mute.
Hi everyone, sorry about that. Welcome everyone to episode 3 of SAWO Labs Vibe Check, a place where we check the vibe with the community and discuss everything on business, startups, and communities. For our episode today, we have a very special guest and a very special panel. I'll start introducing them one by one. We have Prabhat, who's the founder and the CEO of SAWO Labs. Prabhat, if I can have you on stage.
Hi, Cherish. Hi. Good to be here.
Thanks. Next, we have Kitty Agarwal. Kitty is actually partner at InfoEdge Ventures. Kitty started her journey at IIM Ahmedabad, and then from her IIM journey, she started as an analyst in InfoEdge Ventures, and now is a partner. And she has also invested in brands like Zomato, Policy Bazaar, Dot Pay, and bigger brands to come. And I also learned that she's also one of the very few women, and possibly one of the very young ones within the age under 30, who were the youngest global corporate venturing power list for 2020. Kitty,
Thanks so much for the
very
introduction, Cherish. Thank you for the kind words.
likewise. Thank you. Very pleased to have you here. We also have Ninad Karpe with us. Ninad is a is an inspiration for so many of us.
Hi.
Ninad is also a partner at 100x VC, a venture that has actually funded SAWO Labs. Ninad was a CEO and managing director for Aptech, a company so huge it's been in 40 countries and has multiple operations and has over 8 million students now. So a veteran in the industry. Ninad, welcome here, and we're super glad to have you here.
Delighted to be here, Cherish.
Awesome. Great. So today we wanted to discuss how communities-led startups are changing the game altogether. In 2020, we saw a lot of companies actually giving a lot of investment and attention to communities. And since both of you have portfolios which have humongous communities like Zomato, Naukri, and Ninad, you've invested in SAWO Labs and Nourish. Both of these are communities-driven companies. And Prabhat, since we're talking about the developer dev tool space, I wanted to get your initial thoughts about how communities are shaping the startup ecosystem, and and what do you see in future for us? We can start with Kitty. That would be great.
Okay, sure. So, Cherish, like you said, the investor community has been giving a lot of attention to community-led startups, and I think there is a real business reason for it, also a product reason for it, because in general, if you see community adoption happening for any product, then number one, it validates the product market fit for sure, because users don't take you can make someone use a product once, but if you have them coming back again and again and referring people who they know in their network, because let's say I'm an investor, I'm most likely to know 5 other investors than someone else who's not in the investing community. And if there is word of mouth, or is there is referral happening, and a lot more people of the same type are coming and they are repeating the usage, they are retaining, there's a strong validation. That is one. And second is that there are network effects that then play out, and we've seen across the world that network companies that have network effects in terms of users, it's very difficult for another competitor to come in and break that network effect. And it also motivates the company to keep getting feedback from its users and keep bettering its product over time. So if you have a head start on the community front, then the company that has been the first mover gets a big leap in terms of the time they can take to iterate on products, etc. So like you said, we believe community plays a key role in all our investments. Even our LP InfoEdge, they've got Naukri, where there are these job seekers who come, and it's a very vibrant community. On the matrimony side, they've got Jeevan Sathi. So we've just seen communities play out very strongly, and we have a thesis that where this community is there, it's very tough to break the leadership.
Awesome, Ninad.
Sure. If I may just echo what Kitty said and add a bit. We started with product-led marketing and said that product should be at the center of all attention. We have to make customers widely successful, not just happy, but widely successful. Then after that, obviously, the next something which comes with that is community-led startups. Those days of transactions are over. Earlier, you just bought a product or offering. Then the second phase was of experience. You should have a good experience with the product offering. Now you have to have a sense of belonging, and that sense of belonging is not possible unless you have community-led startups. The days of chief marketing officers are over; they are history. We will have to have chief community officers. The CEO's job is becoming a chief community officer. So it's a paradigm shift in the thought process. It cannot be suddenly put on an existing framework saying, no, 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 now we'll also form a community. You all got all these engines in place. On top of that, we'll slap a community and make it a success. It doesn't work. It has to be born with that. That DNA has to be different, and that's how startups have a head start because they're born like that. You can't have a person who has already run the marathon saying, no, no, now you do this. It is not possible. So I think the biggest thing is that the sense of belonging, identity, which consumers today crave for. Millennials want not just gratification of consuming a product or service. They want to belong. They want to have a sense of feeling belonging to that, and this community-led marketing allows it to that. So yes, bad news for chief marketing officers, but good news for chief community officers.
Prabhat, anything to add?
Yeah, sure. When we were building the product, and I remember my first pitch. It was with Nina. Then after that, Nina gives me a call, and we talk about what my vision is for the next 1 year or so. And when I say that we would be going towards developers, we'll be having a community-led engine. I was totally gratified by uh, my investors, Nina and beyond, right? So essentially. I like how the feedback engine has essentially played on for the community-led growth framework, but but of course this whole adoption of community-led framework has taken place only because the startup ecosystem is in some way a reflection of the VC ecosystem, right? So the investor ecosystem has always been community-driven since the early 90s itself. You don't invest alone. You take another investor along because that investor gratifies your vision towards the startup, and that's how you keep referring your deals. That's how you keep bringing investors along to take forward a startup. And that's exactly what community framework has become for startups, right? You bring consumers along, and that's how your products roadmap, your product feedback engine plays out. So I totally see. I totally would want to echo what Nina says, right? That the fact that the CEOs have to become chief community officers at some point. Yeah, Cherish.
Makes sense. Makes sense. In fact, you know what? Yeah, what Kitty said was, makes perfect sense. In fact, anybody who's being referred by a community member is twice as likely to stay, as opposed to somebody you would just acquire, and that goes to why chief marketing officers are kind of becoming slightly extinct in the entire scenario. You're right. So, and all of us, Nina, you and Kitty, ma'am, you have also have portfolios which are heavily community reliant, right? Like Zomato is huge, has a huge community. Naukri has I think I don't even know how many people you acquire on a daily basis, right? And I don't know anybody who's looking for a job and doesn't have a resume on Naukri. So tell us more about how your portfolio is leveraging communities, and how do you keep them like engaged enough, because the inflow doesn't stop. But with that, does the engagement challenge come, or how do you maintain that at all?
Sure. So maybe I'll go first here. So if you look at a Zomato, then the restaurant reviews or all the information that they get on restaurants, and now of course the whole delivery piece, that in itself feeds. They feed on each other. So once you have a good product and there's a community that gets built around that product, then it's a lot about just staying to your core. We often tell our startups that because you are for your product successful and a community's come, it does not mean that you'll do five other things and try and clutter your product or do too many things, because the communities come for a certain reason. And let's make sure that that core stays intact and you keep optimizing on that and giving them the most number of reviews, best reviews. So if you see just the value proposition of the product for the users, over time, of course, it has transitioned into transactions, which was a natural transition. But it's not that they went out and they started doing five other things for the consumer and cluttering things around. Similarly, in a lot of our other investees also, which are who are in edtech or who are in, let's say, social commerce or these spaces, the product proposition needs to be clear, and why people came to love your product. I think over time you have to be razor focused on making sure that every incremental user derives that much value or more. And it does not necessarily mean adding five more things. Like I said, it's about just bettering that fit, that because of which people connected in the first place, and then natural extensions, of course. So overall, I think that's been our experience, that it's very tough to find something that sticks to the user and it speaks to them in a way that they love a product so much. And once you found it, just focus on bettering it and scaling it up.
Makes
So
sense.
if I may add, to some portion of this, the business case or business sense for community-led startups or community-led kind of strategy is absolutely, there's no doubt about it, that it has got a very strong business case or business sense. Whether it's long-term value, loyalty. I mean, you can go through 10 items and say yes. The problem is, devil is in the detail. It's not easy to form it. That's the problem. So when Prabhat mentioned I had a separate call with him, I was trying to suss him out to figure out how the hell is he going to do it. It's all very nice to use these words. It's very good to put a pitch deck saying community-led marketing. Yes, we listen to you, but how are you going to do it? My question is very simple. And that is not a tick mark in a checklist in a typical marketing kind of format, which typically you would learn, saying that, oh, you do all this, and these are the tick marks. This will lead to so many leads, hot leads, cold leads. This doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It's more an art than a science. And yes, I'm not trying to make a voodoo around it, but that's a fact. Content was the king. Content today is important, is not the king. Community is really what is going to lead, and community is the kingdom of for everyone you have to chase. How to do that? What and to form a community, there is, you can't say that you do 10 things and the community people like it. It's all you're capturing the minds of the people in the community, how they
Hmm.
react. You may do all the right things as per the paper, as per what a theory, but you're still not able to form a community. So it is still a lot of effort required. The devil is in details. You have to put a lot of hard work into it, a lot of intuition into it, a lot of innovation is required, and it is not a cookie cutter approach. So just because something worked at public in US, the new
Mhm.
app, which suddenly is appending Robinhood, it doesn't mean the same thing will work in India. Minds are different, thoughts are different. So yes, you have to have a very different mindset to form a community.
Makes sense. Prabhat, have we been doing the right thing? Have we been leading the community as Ninad had expected us to?
Honestly, the community roadmap that I've shown Ninad has completely changed, right? Like every other roadmap that startup builds. But yeah, I guess Ninad has no active reason to be disappointed at this moment. But yeah, more yet to come.
Makes sense. So for somebody who evaluates potential ideas, and potential startups for a living, what are the KPIs that you look for anytime you hear a startup say, "Hey, I'm going to do a community-based startup," right? What are the KPIs that you look for, and does it vary based on stage that they're in? Ninad, we can start with you.
Sure. So, it's there in all pitch decks because it's the word to be used. So we are never surprised when we see it, because if you don't say it, it is, oh, your pitch deck is not complete. But that doesn't, satisfy us, or neither does it bother us. Again, to evaluate something which is science is very easy. Suppose you say total market size, not too difficult, give or take some stuff. What is the addressable market? All these are known things. But how are you going to do a community-led marketing? There's no science to it. So then you have to get into the mind. So I got in the mind of Prabhat. See, what is he really saying? Is he meaning this, or is he that's a sales and sales approach on the top of which is about the word marketing? Uh, so I think one has to probe, one has to find out that it is not is this founder just embracing a new term, or does he or she mean it, and if she or he means it, how is he going to implement? So those devil is in the details again. Yes, one has to probe and find out.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Makes sense.
I just add on to what Ninad said. Mostly, it is how the founder is thinking, but we don't think every startup needs to have that community-led approach as well. For a few, the core proposition might not necessarily result in a community till much later. When things, when let's say it's a transaction-based setup, or it's a lending play, or let's say, I mean, various other spaces. So what we tell people is that you should do what is right for your business or for your product, and you don't necessarily need to go in for the buzzwords and try and chase KPIs that are not relevant at your stage of the business, especially when they come to see us, and that is mostly early stage, early. We just say that, look, what is the product value prop, who is the customer here, and like Ninad had said before, how are you going to delight them to an extent that none of your other competitors or adjacent players are going to do. And if community is a part of it, it's great, but you don't try and work backwards from it.
Hmm. Fair enough. That makes sense. Prabhat, anything to add here?
Yeah, I think when it comes to community-led growth, there is no defined metric sheet for it. I don't think that any VC has, a few metrics that you would want to see to prove that. But of course, retention rate and the rate at which you're growing, any metric or any data that can prove that you have word of mouth ability on your product, the recall that you're able to create from your brand, all of these things are, of course, that I have seen, Ninad probing me about. So, it's there.
So the way to start, and I was trying to ask Prabhat earlier, is see you can't suddenly have a community of 200,000 or 2 million. It's not going to happen. In early
Hmm.
stage startups, particularly, is very tough. So people, the founders have to understand that you can't suddenly throw a huge number. You start with a focus group. It could be a small group. It's not a community, but it's a focus group. That's the first baby step. And I'm giving you founders who are watching this show. That's the first baby step you have to take. Kitty did mention, and I agree with her. You can't suddenly form a community saying that, "No, I'm going to start it." Your product market
Hmm.
fit has to be there. But in that whole process, if you start with small groups, start taking feedbacks, it's a baby step towards forming a community eventually.
Yeah. So I would just add one
Yeah.
more thing there, that the way at InfoEdge we do it is we ask people, what is your golden cohort of users, right? We sort of name it the gold cohort. So let's say you have 100,000 users, and this is speaking to the founders who might be listening. Then how many of those users use you frequently, so you can decide what are the metrics in terms of engagement, time spent, retention, etc. And is that bucket increasing over time, and at what cost? That is very important. So it's okay when you meet us and you have 10 users in that bucket, but the way you're working on your product or going about execution is adding to that bucket every month. And why are they
Hmm.
coming back again and again, and can you move more people into that bucket over time? I think that's just how we track. It's not about absolute numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, Kit, I have a question for you here, and Nihal as well. Do you think low CAC is a metric to community-led growth? Low customer acquisition cost.
I think it's a result. If your product is really resonating and a lot of referrals are happening, conversions are happening from the community, then over time your CAC will naturally come down. You will have a serious advantage. So we saw that in Zomato versus other players, that when Zomato wanted to get into transactions, they didn't have to acquire users. It was the reviews funnel which went into the transactions. And over time, we have seen this play out. So it's a great thing for a founder to get to.
What do you
Yeah,
mean by that?
CAC is a issue. It is because in an early stage where you're pushing your offering, people are absorbing it as a product or offering before community is formed. So CAC starts moving up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Eventually, it has to plateau and come down. If that doesn't happen, then it's an issue. So CAC is becoming an issue for a lot of people because it's not easy to get a customer, and the rising graph can only come down if you have a good plan in place, whether you form this golden kind of group or a focus group, and then eventually lead to a community.
So,
Yeah.
jumping on that and adding one more question to it, how would you separate community-led growth with content-led growth? Because I think lower CAC is also driven by content, right? And that is, I think that's different from community. So, how would you differentiate on the same?
So, it depends on your product. In India, there is no one silver bullet for anything. That's the
True.
beauty of the Indian market. And welcome to the Indian market. So everything works. If you say, no, I will not do any content at all, I don't believe only community led, it will not work.
Yeah.
But if you say, no, I will do only this, so you have to, there are layers and layers. There are, consumers in tier 2, tier 1, the consumers in, Delhi, South Delhi, they are different. So when I say content is no longer the king, that means aspiration should not be that content is the only thing. There is life
Yeah.
beyond the king. There's an
Yeah.
emperor. And that
Yeah.
position slowly, content-led marketing is inching towards that. Doesn't mean king is not there. So you have to have that content-led also led marketing also, because there are people consuming that part.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the longer term should be you either push them up to that level of community, or you ensure that it becomes so strong that this becomes just a small portion. So you can't ignore content. Please don't do that. It
Yeah.
has to be.
Exactly. So, Kitty, coming back to you on that. So, when it comes to Zomato as a product, the community did drive it. The feedback engine did drive it, like you were talking about. But what would you give more credit? The content-led push notifications and the whole loop that they have created using content, or the community that's driving it? What would you give more credit?
So, Prabhat, like Ninad said, it's not exclusive. Community and content isn't exclusive because it was the menus which originally drove the traffic and led to formation of the community. So it was the content. Similarly, in many new age startups also, that we are investing in, let's say, we've recently invested in a company named Air Black, which helps people learn to become makeup artists. So the thing is that the content they have on Instagram, on other places about makeup, about how to become a makeup artist, all of that drives a lot of traffic and followership. And then how do you convert that followership into a community, so that they also then become creators of that content for you, and only you as a company are not having to generate that content always to get more and more people in. I think that is the loop that you want to get into. Initially, you seed some content which gets people, and then how do you motivate them or make them love your content so much that they also then become content generators for you?
Yeah.
Prabhat, isn't that exactly what we're doing, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
our community has been writing blogs for how to integrate SAWO in their own products. And not just that, they're sharing it on social media as well. There's a peer-to-peer learning happening altogether. So, exactly echoing what Kitty said. And talking of Indian ecosystem, what Ninad touched upon, right? So, communities is fairly a new thing in India, right? It existed long before in early 2000s in the US. And it's a very interesting proposition because even though Indian companies have communities, but they exist, some of them at least exist because of the virtue that they've existed for too long, not because there was an active acquisition or a community strategy altogether, right? And do you think like has Indian ecosystem learned the value of communities, or are they still gathering communities by the virtue of existing in the market, and slow and steady acquisition is building a community? Uh, Ninath, we can start with you.
So I'm very very gung ho on successful community led marketing in India, And I'll tell you the reasons why. India had a very strong history of customer loyalty based marketing. Very, very strong. Not many countries in the world. People loved this loyalty programs. It was a massive science by itself. That worked very hard. And then there were, icons like, those mobiles and all, where there was always this kind of people surrounding that. So India has had a different color of what I would say a community. Now, there are
Mm.
so many successful loyalty programs which have happened for many years now, last 20, 30 years. It is very different. I'm not saying it's the same. It is different. But the fact that Indians have loved loyalty program means that they will love community-led program, and it is not irrespective of the age. If you are giving the right kind of offering to the customer, they will join your community. They'll contribute to it, and they will also take from it. So
Yeah.
it's a market waiting to explode with the right mix. And if you will ask me, Cherish, what is the right mix? I'll tell you later.
Well, isn't that always the answer? That's true. So, Kitty, anything to add about the Indian ecosystem reacting to communities?
So I think it's been there as an underlying factor since a couple of decades, probably, in how tech startups function, because the network effects kick in so fast that any founder who is smart enough will know that, look, these users are sticking, my marketing CAC is down, they transact more. I just There's just more value to this, and then intuitively, how do you build on it? What has happened over the last 2 to 3 years, I think, is that it's just become more clear that how to talk about it. So earlier, maybe people would not
Yeah.
talk as much about it, but now they just like to focus on it and bring that out very clearly in their own approach. So I don't think fundamentals of building the business have changed, but what you do in terms of your priority, whether you want to go in with that approach in the beginning, you want to talk more about it, you want to have your team focus more on those KPIs, maybe those things have changed.
True.
Yeah, makes sense. Prabhat, would you like to contribute here?
Yeah, of course, I don't think that Indian ecosystem is, relying on a community. Actually, that's clearly seen by the lack of brand loyalty we see around, right? Brand loyalty hasn't been uh, a very strong point of the Indian buyer ecosystem at all. So that is something that proves that communities are not being leveraged enough. But I see that that is going to be the way forward. Retention and loyalty based upon the whole interaction that the community creates.
Makes sense. Yeah, true. Yeah, it's pretty evident, and I think it's with last 9 months, COVID has kind of accelerated and made people realize that you can't meet people anymore, and there is no geographical constraint, so might as well attract people based on your values, right? And that has given rise to communities at such a rapid scale. All right. So for this next session, guys, what we do is we do a rapid fire kind of questions. What we'll do is, since my frame starts with Prabhat, Kitty, and Ninad, you guys can answer question just like in maybe one or two sentences at best. Shorter the better. And I'll throw the same question to all of you. So Ninad, you get a little more time than Prabhat does. Okay. Um, Perfect. All right. So, Prabhat, any startup in the ecosystem which deserves much more attention than it is currently getting?
Cool. I think Karpe deserves a lot more attention than it's getting. It'll eventually come in, of course. I also believe that Nourish as a product it deserves more attention than it's getting, because it's been doing something that Shopify did back in the States in a different genre, and that has been a great adoption to the same. But of course, Hasura is always something that I love talking about, right? I can't stop talking about Hasura anyway. So Hasura, of course, needs to be in the forefront of the whole dev tool scene, and I believe that it's going to be the next big thing.
True. Kitty, up to you.
So, my pick would be this company named Shiprocket. I'm not sure if people are aware about it too much. They
Yes,
haven't
it would.
raised too much money, but the kind of cash they churn out and the kind of strong business fundamentals they have with a super solid founder, I'm always very impressed with the founder Sahil. And we had evaluated him for investment about 6-7 years ago. That's been a huge miss because I have a lot of respect for how they've built the business.
Hmm. Makes sense.
Okay, so
Go ahead, Nina.
I can't say SAWO, so I'll have to select something else.
Huh.
So my choice would be Nourish, spelled Knorish.
Yeah, it
It's,
is.
Prabhat mentioned, but obviously my choice would be Nourish.
Yeah, he could have totally
Awesome.
talked about SAWO, but then yeah, he doesn't like appreciating me in front of me. But in some other talk, I suppose. Yeah.
Great. All right. So next question. So considering a lot of startups fail, right? If there is one thing that you would like to monitor very closely, just one thing that you would like to check on a day-to-day basis, Prabhat, what would that be?
I think more than anything, I would totally monitor my CAC on a daily basis. And I also believe that retention rate is a very underrated metric. It has to be seen more than growth. It has to be kept in front of the month-on-month growth in itself. Like acquisition should not be your forefront, your retention should be. So that's something that I believe that people should look at maybe.
So I would
Yeah,
say
great.
what is the customer saying is most important. So on a daily basis, if we could monitor for our investees, we would love to know what customers are saying. So every day, what 10 customers are saying who are randomly picked shows a lot about where the company is headed.
Awesome.
Sure. So I mean, yes, Kitty has said customers and pipeline, but good old fashioned looking at the cash flow is also very interesting. It's old
I
fashioned, still not gone out of fashion. If you want
I
to track,
saw this coming. I saw this coming from a mile away. I knew Ninad would talk about revenue at some point. Yeah, Cherish.
All right. So I think inspired by the kind of portfolio that Kitty is holding, right? Like where there's dot pay, which is kind of a decentralized way of like empowering merchants to build their own thing. It's a aggregator based compared to Zomato, which is like an aggregator based model, right? What do you think is the future, Prabhat?
Kitty didn't see this question coming. Okay, I'm sure she's going to have a very interesting answer, but I believe I would bet more on Dotnet than Zomato. I believe that an anti-aggregator philosophy is what's going to be the next thing. People directly selling from themselves. It's been coming for a while. It was
Yeah.
coming. Uh, but of course, it's also more difficult to actually breach into because you would rather be in a space where you get 15 things than be in a space where you want to get one. That's essentially why I believe that it's going to be very difficult to create retention there. But yeah, I think it's going to be the next thing because of if they are able to drive community in the right way. The brands
Hmm.
themselves, not the anti-aggregator model.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, my view is that both are needed because if you look at the models like Zomato or Oyo or Swiggy, they help bring new customers to the brands and to the merchants, and they help them become go technology first in how they operate. They are sort of the entry point who teach the merchants a lot of things on technology adoption, how to interact with their customers and all of that. So I don't think that is going to be bypassed anytime or should be bypassed because it brings a lot of value to these merchants. Whereas someone like a DotPay brings a lot more tools beyond just what the aggregators do. So they will also help these merchants in their fintech plays. I think just how we look at it is that DotPay in our heads is a pure SaaS plus a fintech play for
Yeah.
merchants across categories, whereas Zomato is more food focused right now, restaurant focused, and they bring customers in a different manner.
Hmm.
so yeah, I agree. Coexist. India is a large market. They will coexist. Simple words.
Perfect. All right. Makes sense. So for my next question, Prabhat, you've also seen a lot of pitches, a lot of people come and hackathon and present. Even looking at it from an investor point of view, what is the most frustrating thing that you've seen that invest that in a deck or in a pitch that founders are not able to get rid of? Force of habit or something.
I'm sure Ninad and Kitty would have more value to add in this question, but according to what I see is that I believe chucking the jargons out should be a priority when it comes to pitches, because investors like it really simple. I don't know why founders believe that it's important to pick up the words, but to be very precise, I also believe that lack of numbers and more. Lack of backing to the numbers is something that really pisses an investor off, right? You can throw around projections, you can throw around month on month growth is a thing, but I think the lack of logic behind it is something that founders should avoid.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I would actually, my answer was very similar to Prabhat's, that people come and they make these crazy projections, and I don't know why they believe that investors will be impressed if they can show that they can quickly get to these crazy numbers, because that's just not the idea. So you think market size is X, if you show that you can get to a certain percentage of X quickly in 5 years, then everyone will be jumping on the opportunity, but that's just not how it works. So I think that is a big thing. And secondly, a few founders do this, not too many, but still a few talk about exits. When you come to someone at an early stage, I don't we want you to build this for life, and hopefully as you create value in the process, everyone will share in that value. But I personally don't like people who are talking about exits when they are starting the company.
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense.
Wow.
At least don't talk to investors about what you think your exit is going to be. And I have pitched to Kitty and Ninad board. I avoid these 5-year projections. Okay, I bet both of them haven't seen beyond 12 months on my projections. 12 months at a time sounds like something that investors will love to believe. Ninad, over to you.
So yeah, I mean, obviously I agree with all that, and I would have said the same thing. But let me give a different angle of what I really don't like is, see, this concept which founders are told, storytelling. In Hindi it sounds kahani sunao. So I have actually, in those physical days when we used to have meet founders physical, I was entering the pit, and unfortunately the founder didn't know I was next to him outside. Koi kahani sunao. It doesn't work that way. Storytelling doesn't mean a fiction story. It's a non-fiction storytelling pitch deck it has to have, and you have to get to the point immediately. I tell founders I have 3 so whats in my mind. First 3 sentences, that so what doesn't get answered, you're done. I switch off, I check my WhatsApp. So if you say, I want to have a world which is a better place to live than me, great, so what? I want to have a world which is greener than what it is now, so what? You have to get to that attention. I have 3 so whats. So I'm giving you my secret, my friends. 3 so whats. If the third so what you do not respond meaningfully, you are history.
Wow.
Totally.
Inad is brutal.
Oh, ask me about it.
I just thought to give some real hints,
Fantastic. We're just about to, we're just wrapping up. We have 2 questions from, audience. If we could pull that up, and you can take that would be great. Okay, will community-led growth be a healthy idea for e-commerce companies, especially in India, as a brand loyalty is missing? Anybody can take that.
Kitty has funded a lot of e-com companies. She's the right person.
Oh.
So I think it helps for sure if you see this new breed of social commerce companies, even outside our portfolio, let's say a Meesho or someone like Bulbul in our portfolio. We've got Bulbul in the social commerce space, it's influencer-led commerce, and it builds on the community aspect to build on loyalty. We are seeing the metrics really change if that kind of factor can play into the commerce model. So I'm a big proponent of it, that having any kind of community in the commerce really changes the game.
So e-com companies have a hook of loyalty, whether it's Prime membership, discounts, first offering. So there is a hook. Now, to that hook is already existing successfully. The next step is to ensure that the hook leads to a community, and it can't lead. It has to be a different thought process. It can
Yeah.
happen, and it should happen.
Yeah. Well said. I think that was a beautiful question as well. Thanks, Ayushi. Any more questions? Okay, we have how do I start my own startup? How can I get my funds and how do I choose my team? Oof. Uh,
That's 4 years in a question.
So, we have a not-for-profit initiative, so I'm happy to share with it. This is not a commercial for 100x, but it's a not-for-profit. We have launched Entrepreneurship Gurukul. Our first cohort has started just 2 days back. So our next cohort will open applications. Go to our 100x website. It's a zero cost, no equity, no consulting, nothing. We are going to train 200 startups we have picked and 300 plus founders. We are going to go through a 12-week online, recorded, and live sessions. So, Girija, go to our website and wait for the next squad. That's probably my only suggestion.
awesome. Thanks, Vinod. Okay, we're just about to wrap up. But before we wrap up, any closing notes, right? Anything that you have going on in your company, anything that in your personal life that you want to tell young founders and potentially, young executives who are listening to us. Prabhat, we can start with you.
I'm sure I'm learning right now. I don't have much to share, but I believe that it's important to be persistent. It's important to keep moving as fast as you can, and it's important to know that every minute counts. I believe obsession is all that I would give before I leave. I pass on the baton to Kitty.
So I would just say that focus on your customer, and keep talking to your customer all the time, even when your company has expanded and you've hired people to do it. Keep talking to the customer and focus on baby steps. You can't get to suddenly. I also want to clarify something, that a lot of founders, even in our portfolio, get distracted due to the large funding news. They believe that, oh, this other person in my space just raised so much at this valuation. Look at me, I'm already this much. This I hear all the time from those we invest in or we don't invest in, and we tell them that, look, don't distract yourself. Just keep yourself focused on your own business value prop, and everything will happen in due time. There is no bench. It's not a benchmarking exercise. So overall, just to the founder community, don't get discouraged.
Fantastic.
So I would go a step before that, and I'd say that if you're thinking of a startup or wondering whether to do it, don't think, just do it. If there is a time in India to start a startup, it is now. And what problem do you have to solve? Just look out of your window. There are hundreds of problems waiting there to be solved, which you have to grab a problem and figure out how to solve it. Remember, capital is chasing ideas. So you will not have to worry on that. If you have a great idea which can become big, Kitty is here, I am here. I can tell you with full conviction, capital is chasing ideas.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was well put, Minar.
Dinar is as articulate as it gets, right? Like,
Right.
I thought I'll give brief, crisp messages to your viewers. This is a Twitter world, so 140 characters. Capital is chasing ideas fits in a Twitter format.
I remember the time I raised our larger round, right? And Ninaz calls me up at 6:37 in the morning, and I'm on my way to the investor's office to sign my term sheet. And Ninaz is like, oh, as soon as you sign the term sheet, forget that you got the funding. Don't let this. The word he used was "command mat rakhega," and you have to keep hustling. So yeah, totally. I believe that capital is chasing ideas, and I believe that it's important to it's important for us to keep doing whatever we feel is right. And if things collide with other visions, it will keep moving. Thank you so much, viewers. Thank you so much, Cherish. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
ma'am. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Srinath.
Just before uh, Before we leave, Prabhat, I want to say that if our viewers want to shower any feedback also on us, or just like congratulate Ninad on being so articulate, we'll float a feedback form right there, and you can say how amazing both of our guests were, especially Kitty and Ninad. And we also have a Discord community where we kind of completely post about hackathons, job postings, and we keep our roundtables there where you as a developer will come and help us build our product. We continuously say that your feedback is gold for us because not just we hear them, but we also act on them. Your feedback also influences our roadmap. So feel free to join that. And I want to thank Nath, Kitty, and Prabhat for joining us. This has been a fantastic session for us, and I'm truly honored that you could join us. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting
Bye
Thank
us.
bye.
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting. It was a good session. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Kitty. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye. Thanks, everyone.